Welcome back to NEXGROW. Today we're going deep, really deep, into Siddharth Kara's Cobalt Red, How the Blood of the Congo Powers Our Lives.
Yeah, a powerful book, literally and figuratively, right? We're talking about the cobalt that makes our tech tick.
And the human cost behind it? That's what Kara uncovered.
Exactly. And we'll be digging into his firsthand research, talking to miners, families, even mining executives.
I understand the whole picture.
Right, the whole system.
So the book opens with this, chilling scene
Oh, yeah.
at the Camelombe mine.
Okay.
Soldiers are preventing villagers from actually seeing an accident. A
Wow.
horrific accident. So right away, it's like secrecy, danger, what's going on?
Yeah, Kara calls it deliberate obfuscation.
Deliberate obfuscation.
It's a strategy, he argues, that these big mining companies use.
Okay.
They want the cobalt, obviously,
Right.
but they don't want to be tied to the awful conditions.
The artisanal mines.
Yeah, where a lot of it comes from.
So just to clarify for our listeners, artisanal mining,
So we're talking small scale,
right? Informal.
often very informal mining operations.
And this is happening in the DRC.
In the Democratic Republic of Congo, yeah, which holds, get this, over 70% of the world's cobalt reserves.
It's mind-boggling.
It is, and that makes it a geopolitical focal point. I mean, everyone wants a piece of this.
Oh, yeah. We're talking tech giants,
Yeah.
Chinese mining companies. It's a battle for control.
A modern-day gold rush, you could say, but with even higher stakes.
Definitely. And Kara, he doesn't just look at the present. He connects this exploitation to the DRC's history
Oh, a long, dark history.
of colonial atrocities.
Starting with King Leopold II.
Yeah, that's a name that sends chills down your spine.
Brutal reign, and Kara argues that this cobalt rush, it's just another chapter.
In this ongoing exploitation.
Sadly, yes, the Congolese people robbed of their resources and dignity.
It's like the exploitation never ended, just changed forms.
That's a powerful point.
And then there's the working conditions in these artisanal mines.
Yeah, not a pretty picture.
Kara paints a grim picture, children like 8 years old,
It's hard to believe.
working in these dangerous pits and tunnels for pennies.
And for what? To power our smartphones, our electric cars?
It's a stark contrast.
He talks about tunnel collapses, severe injuries, lack of safety equipment,
And healthcare.
practically non-existent, and tragically, he documents instances of child trafficking. It's modern-day slavery.
Fueling our progress, so-called progress.
This is a painful truth.
But it seems like Kara, he doesn't just point fingers.
No, he goes deeper.
He interviewed a wide range of people, miners, families, even executives, government officials.
He wanted to understand the whole system, the power dynamics.
And this is where the Chinese companies come in.
They have a huge presence in the Congolese mining sector.
But are they playing by the same rules?
That's the question, and Kara reveals that often, no, they operate with little regard for human rights.
Or environmental regulations?
It's a stark reminder of the challenges.
Of creating an ethical supply chain globally.
Huge challenges.
And it can feel overwhelming, all of this. But Kara, he does look at some initiatives
Okay.
to improve the situation.
Like?
So-called model mines.
Oh, the ones that claim to be operating ethically.
Yeah, exactly. But I'm guessing they weren't all they were cracked up to be.
You guessed it. While there were some improvements, like, protective gear, attempts to limit child labor,
Okay.
still a lot of issues,
Are there?
lack of transparency, heavily guarded areas,
And the miners themselves.
still being paid extremely low wages.
So even the good guys aren't perfect.
It makes you wonder, can ethical cobalt even exist?
Are we being misled?
It's the question we all need to ask ourselves.
Because this book, it forces us to confront
Some uncomfortable truths.
about our reliance on cobalt and what it really costs.
The hidden costs of our tech obsession.
And Kara highlights this irony, this heartbreaking irony.
What's that?
The DRC, with all its mineral wealth, is one of the poorest countries in the world.
It's mind-boggling.
People mining the cobalt that powers our electric cars don't even have electricity themselves.
A stark illustration of the inequality.
At the heart of this global trade.
That's a powerful point.
And this inequality, it's really evident in places like Fungaroom.
Yeah.
The town built around a massive cobalt mine, Tenke Fungaroom mining.
TFM, right?
Yeah, and the relationship between the community and this mine, it's complicated.
It's what happens when a mining operation displaces people.
People forced off their land, little warning, little compensation.
And what do? They turn to artisanal mining.
On the PFM concession, just to survive.
A cycle of exploitation.
And this tension it leads to conflict.
Absolutely. Kara describes riots, clashes with security forces.
People are angry, they feel exploited.
And ignored, so they're taking matters into their own hands.
And how do the mining companies respond?
Not peacefully, I'm afraid. Kara talks about CMOC, the Chinese company that owns TFM.
Okay.
They brought in the army.
To remove these artisanal miners.
For a brutal crackdown.
So instead of addressing the root causes,
Violence and intimidation.
sadly, it seems like a pattern.
And the stories from Utanda Mining, another huge mine, owned by Glencore, they're equally disturbing.
MUMI, yeah, tens of thousands of artisanal miners there.
Including children working in these incredibly dangerous conditions.
The scale of this is hard to grasp. How much cobalt are we talking about?
Kara estimates that at just one of MUMI's mines, Shibara,
Okay.
artisanal miners were producing roughly 180,000 tons of copper cobalt ore per year.
180,000 tons.
And that's just one mine.
Unregulated and often deadly.
And where's it all going?
Yeah, it's not staying in the DRC.
Kara argues that it's highly likely this cobalt is flowing into the formal supply chains.
Of the big companies.
The tech giants, the electric vehicle manufacturers,
Even if they deny it,
they can't separate themselves completely from artisanal mining.
the volume is just too high.
The evidence is there.
So the cobalt that powers our devices, it's linked to these horrific conditions.
It's a difficult truth to swallow.
And then Kara takes us even deeper to Tilwezembe,
Tilwezembe. Okay.
an artisanal mine near Kolwezi.
And what's happening there?
This is where the dangers of tunnel digging are really brought to light.
Tunnel digging? Yeah, it's become more common as the surface deposits get depleted.
In Kara, he documents multiple tunnel collapses at Tilwezembe.
Yay, leading to...
Dozens of deaths, many of them children.
It's heartbreaking.
It compares Tilwezembe to a cemetery.
Wow. Because of
So many miners buried beneath the ground they were trying to exploit.
It's a powerful image.
And the stories of individual miners, their families.
They really bring this tragedy home.
There's Kasongo, an 11-year-old boy
11 years old.
who lost both his legs in a tunnel collapse.
Oh my God.
He was forced to work after his father died in a mining accident
It's a cycle of poverty and exploitation.
that trapped so many families.
And then there's Lubo, a 12-year-old.
Buried alive in another collapse at Tilwezembe.
It's just awful.
His father sent him to work after injuring his arm.
Couldn't provide for the family.
It's just devastating, these stories.
They highlight the ripple effects of these accidents.
Families pushed into increasingly dangerous situations.
Just trying to survive.
And even some of the Chinese workers, they're horrified by what they're seeing.
Oh, really?
Kara interviews Chen, a depot manager for Huayu Cobalt.
Okay.
And he describes the exploitation as heartbreaking.
Interesting. So even within the industry, there's discomfort.
And he makes this comment, Africa is a big place, not so competitive.
It's revealing. It hints at this attitude.
Of seeing the continent as a place ripe for resource extraction.
With few consequences.
It echoes the colonial mindset.
It's not just about technology, it's about power.
But Kara, amidst all this despair, he explores some potential solutions.
Like what?
He looks at these model mines in more detail.
Okay.
He visits one run by Chemif, a major cobalt supplier, and another by CDM, a subsidiary of Huayu Cobalt.
So let's dive into these so-called model mines. What did he find at Kema?
Well, the mine at Mutoshi, it's heavily guarded.
So he couldn't see everything.
He was only allowed to see a small portion.
Okay.
And while he acknowledges some improvements, the protective equipment, the attempts to restrict child labor,
Okay.
there's still this lack of transparency.
Like something's being hidden.
Exactly. And when he interviewed miners at Mutoshi,
Yeah.
they described being paid very low wages
Still.
and facing pressure to meet these quotas.
So the model mine label, it doesn't guarantee ethical practices.
It seems that way.
And what about the CDM mine?
They claim to have eliminated child labor,
Yep.
improved working conditions.
Bruh.
But Kara, he witnessed children working just outside the mine,
Doing what?
sorting through discarded rock, trying to find cobalt,
So they're pushing the exploitation just outside the boundaries?
trying to create this facade,
It's deceptive.
ethical sourcing.
It's a disturbing tactic.
So even these model mines,
They fall short.
one of the most important takeaways from Cobalt Red
What's that?
is that these attempts to clean up the industry,
They're often focused on appearances.
rather than systemic change.
The facade.
So where do we go from here?
It's the big question.
If even the best efforts aren't enough?
What are the real solutions? Well, Kara argues that consumers, tech companies, governments, We all have a role to play.
So we all need to step up.
Yeah, consumers need to demand transparency.
From these tech companies.
Right. Push for ethical sourcing, put pressure on them.
So being informed is key.
Absolutely. Knowing where your cobalt comes from, making conscious choices.
But he acknowledges that individual action, it can only go so far.
It needs to be bigger than that.
Systemic change.
Yeah, holding these mining companies accountable for their actions.
But before we dive into those solutions,
Sure.
I want to go back to something you mentioned, the mining cooperatives.
Oh, right.
In theory, they should empower artisanal miners.
They should, on paper.
But Kara's research shows a different story.
Yeah, unfortunately, instead of support, instead of protection, he found a lot of corruption.
So they're not what they seem.
Nope. Powerful individuals within those cooperatives, they're profiting off the miners.
Off the most vulnerable people.
It's a twisted system.
And this control, it extends beyond the mines.
How so?
Kara takes us to Kasulo,
Kasulo. Okay.
a village built on a former mining site near Kolwezi.
Okay.
And it's become this hotbed for artisanal cobalt mining.
Yes.
It's dangerous.
In what way?
It's almost entirely built on these underground tunnels,
Oh, wow.
dug with little to no safety precautions.
So these miners, they're risking their lives every day.
Absolutely. Kara documents multiple tunnel collapses,
Yeah.
countless injuries, deaths,
A place where opportunity and tragedy collide.
and the human cost, it's staggering.
He tells the story of Jolie and her family.
Oh, devastating.
Her husband and son killed in a tunnel collapse.
Leaving her to raise their children alone.
In a community ravaged by poverty.
It's heartbreaking.
Shows the ripple effects, not just the miners.
Families, entire communities torn apart.
Right, this pursuit of cobalt.
And then there's Lucien,
Lucian, okay.
a young boy, severely injured after a tunnel collapse.
How old was he?
His legs shattered.
A constant reminder of the risks.
And his story also highlights the healthcare system in the DRC.
Or the lack thereof.
Yeah, his family could only afford one surgery.
So he's left with.
Permanent disabilities, an uncertain future.
It's just not right.
And the cobalt rush, it's not just impacting the people.
Right.
It's the environment, too.
In what way?
Pollution.
Oh, right.
Kara describes contaminated water sources,
Okay.
land poisoned by mining waste.
And it gets worse.
He uncovers evidence of uranium smuggling
Uranium.
linked to this artisanal cobalt mining.
So we're talking about
Radioactive contamination, long-term health impacts
it's a toxic legacy.
that will last for generations.
That's a sobering thought.
But Kara, he encounters some individuals, organizations,
Oh.
working to expose these abuses, push for change.
Okay, like who?
There's Philippe, a former artisanal miner.
Okay.
Now he dedicates his time to advocating for better conditions.
Using his experience to make a difference.
And Josephine, a teacher,
A teacher
she sees education as crucial
to break this
of poverty and exploitation.
powerful work.
Their work is inspiring.
They embody the resilience of the Congolese people.
But Kara is clear, local efforts alone, they won't solve this.
It needs to be bigger.
He argues for consumers, tech companies, governments to take responsibility.
So what can consumers actually do?
He challenges us to demand transparency.
From who?
The companies that make our smartphones, laptops, electric cars.
So we know where our cobalt is coming from.
And be willing to pay a little more.
For ethically sourced cobalt.
Our choices, they have power.
We can drive change.
And what about the tech companies themselves?
They're profiting from this, so they need to step up.
Beyond PR, beyond surface level stuff.
Real reform.
In their supply chains.
Ensuring responsible mining, workers treated with dignity, fair compensation.
A complete overhaul.
From prioritizing profit to prioritizing people.
And the plan.
And of course, the role of governments is crucial.
What can they do?
Enforce stricter regulations on these mining operations.
Hold companies accountable.
Crack down on corruption. Invest in sustainable industries.
So creating a supportive environment.
For ethical mining practices.
Shifting the focus from short-term profits to long-term sustainability.
Cobalt Red. It's a wake-up call.
It's a powerful indictment of this system.
That prioritizes profit over people.
We enjoy the benefits of technology.
But ignore the human cost.
It's a story that demands our attention.
Our empathy.
And our action.
We can't just read this and move on.
The next time you pick up your smartphone.
Or drive your electric car.
Remember the people of the DRC.
The sacrifices they've made.
And ask yourself, what can I do to make a difference?
It's a powerful question. Yeah, it is. It's a big one, a tough one. But Kara, he tries to, give us some direction.
Roadmap of sorts.
Yeah, exactly. For creating a more just and sustainable cobalt industry.
Okay, so what does that look like?
Well, he argues for, a multi-pronged approach.
Okay.
Consumers, tech companies, governments, all working together.
I can't just point fingers.
No, we all have to acknowledge our role.
Take responsibility.
Yeah, Kara calls on consumers to, demand transparency.
From the companies we buy from.
Right. Make informed choices about the products we use.
And be willing to pay a little more.
Yeah, for ethically sourced cobalt, it might cost a bit more, but
Just worth it.
yeah, it's about using our purchasing power to incentivize these companies.
To do the right thing.
Exactly.
And the tech companies themselves, they have a huge responsibility.
Huge. They're the ones profiting, so they need to go beyond, just PR moves.
Yeah, those surface level solutions.
Right. They need to implement real reforms in their supply chains.
Commit to systemic change.
Ensuring responsible mining practices, workers treated fairly, communities compensated.
That's a tall order.
It is, but it's necessary.
And then there's the role of governments.
Crucial. They need to, step up their game.
How?
Enforce stricter regulations on these mining operations, crack down on the corruption.
Which is rampant.
Sadly, yes, and invest in developing sustainable industries in the DRC.
So creating a supportive environment.
Both legally and economically.
For ethical mining practices.
Yeah, shifting the focus away from just profit to sustainability, to shared prosperity.
It's a powerful vision.
It is, but it will take a lot of work to make it happen.
No quick fixes.
No, definitely not. But Cobalt Red reminds us we can't just ignore this problem.
We can't just hope it goes away.
The choices we make today, they have consequences. For the DRC, for the people who mine our cobalt.
It's a sobering thought, but also a call to action.
Yeah, we all have a role to play in creating a more just and equitable future.
In Cobalt Red, it gives us the knowledge, the tools.
To start making a difference.
Well said. Thanks for guiding us through this.
My pleasure.
This has been a real
You're
eye-opener.
a powerful book.
And to all our listeners, thanks for joining us on NEXGROW.
Keep learning.
Keep growing.
And keep pushing for a better world.
Until next time.